Hello everyone, welcome to the next session, that is WSDL. So here we will discuss a brief about the WSDL, what it is required for. So WSDL is a web service description language, right? So this is required to define a web service. So every service provider exposes an XML based document, you can say, that describes each and every parameter about the web service. So here in this case, this is a SOAP API for a SOAP web service. So WSDL is a XML based interface, so it describes all the attribute of the web service. So attribute in the sense what all operations are exposed by the web service, and also like suppose we have a calculator web service, then it will expose different operations like add, subtract, divide, and many more, right? And the most important thing and most useful thing about the web service description language is, since it is an XML based, it is easily machine readable, so it can be easily parsed by any of the programming language, and there are many client tools also available which can directly parse it, and using that they can generate the request response also, right? So there it's quite helpful. And also going forward we will discuss the structure as well, and we'll discuss one example also. So let's see here. So these are all this is a basic structure that is defined by WSDL in the WSDL specification, right? So we will have the endpoint here, what all endpoints are exposed by the web service, and the port which is exposed by the web service. Then we have the binding, SOAP bindings. So SOAP bindings, generally there are two, 1.1 and 1.2. Let's discuss the example on WSDL. So this is a calculator web service that is hosted over the internet on dneonline.com. So this is a free of cost, and you can use this for testing also. So these two operations are exposed by this SOAP API: add, divide, multiply, and subtract. So we will discuss WSDL exposed by this API. So let's open the service description, that is WSDL. If you can see here, right? So in case of WSDL here, if you can see, these are all the definitions which are defined in the WSDL. So within the definition there are multiple things, like we have the type, we have the element types. So let's go to the divide operation, right? So in the divide operation we have two bindings, 1.1 and 1.2. Right? Let's discuss this from the WSDL also. So, and this is the request format, this is the response format. So if you can see here, this is the divide operation. So in the divide operation, this is the request format which is defined by the API. So it will have two parameters, int a and int 1, and types of both the parameter can be only int, right? Similarly, there is the divide response which is being sent back to the request which is received by the API. So within that we will have divide result, and within divide result it will be of integer type. So suppose we have int a as 10 and int b as 2, then the result will be here 5. Within the divide result it will be defined. So if you can see here, this is the XML response, and this is the divide result. So I think so it will be much more. So this is the XML response format, right? And we have discussed there, this is the divide result, and where it is defined in the divide response. So that's how it works. Similarly here also, divide operation, and these are two parameters, right? Let's have a practical on this, hands-on on this in our next session. And so here we will be discussing a simple example how WSDL looks like and how it is useful in creating a test case, right? So we will discuss each and every component here, right? So let's start. So this is a free web service available on internet, right, by DNE online, right? So this is a calculator web service. So we have these four operations available that are exposed by this API. So this is what type of API? This is a SOAP API. It works on the SOAP architecture, or and the request and response will be in SOAP format, in XML SOAP structure. So let's start with this divide operation. So we will be using divide operation here to understand, right? So if you can see here, so this is the request format, right, and this is the response format, which is defined by this API. So we can only send request in this format and get response only in this specified format by SOAP. So what are SOAP 1.1 and 1.2? So these are the two bindings, right? So WSDL, as we have already discussed, it defines the API architecture or API specification. So please note, every WSDL exposes two type of bindings, SOAP bindings. So 1.1 and 1.2. So when we will try this in our API client, so you will see two different requests are created there. One is with 1.1 and next is 1.2. So let me first show you the WSDL. So you can click here, right, and it will show you the WSDL. So this is the WSDL file. So you can see what all operations are here. So we have the subtract operation, right, and within subtract it is defining, we have the subtract response and what all parameters are exposed by this API, but this particular subtract operation, right? So similarly we have divide operation, which we will be discussing now in detail, right? So there are many other parameters also which are defined in the API, in the WSDL itself. So let's take this example and use this in SOAP UI. So SOAP UI, in brief, is a client. It's a API client which can be used to test the web services, whether it is REST or whether it is SOAP web service. So let's create a SOAP project. So project, I will say this is Kelsey, right? And initial WSDL, you can either give it a file by browsing it here, or you can also give the endpoint if it is hosted over internet. So I will give the same create sample request for all operation. So it will create all the sample request for all operation, add, subtract, divide, right? All these operations will be created. So let's start. See, it's quite easy. It will analyze the WSDL and it will, so see, there are two bindings exposed here. One is 1.1 and one is 1.2. You can use any of the one to test this. So let's open this. So if you can see here, this is the same structure which we have discussed in detail earlier, right? So this is the integer which is exposed and this is the integer b. So you can see how useful WSDL is to understand the API and create test cases also. As the same way WSDL we will be using in creating a virtual service also. So let's try if this is working. Let's give two values 6 and 3 here, and let's see what's the response. See, so now if you can see, the response we are getting back is in SOAP structure, right? So this is the result, right? So I think so you are now clear with this. You might be having quite good understanding now about the WSDL. So let's move to our next session.